The Galactic Fleet hovered above Earth, their ships sleek and silent, brimming with technologies honed over centuries. Their commanders surveyed the blue planet below, sharing disdainful laughs. Earth, with its forests, mountains, and scattered cities, seemed like a primitive world, vastly different from the high-tech realms they dominated. For them, humanity was a mere curiosity, a species playing with scraps of metal while the galaxy marched forward. From their vantage point, Earth's defenses appeared laughable. Their scans picked up some basic weapons, nuclear arsenals, and mechanized armor, but it was all unsophisticated to the fleet. Compared to their ionized shields and plasma weapons, Earth's arsenal seemed like relics from an ancient age. "It's like watching creatures try to harness fire," one commander said with a smirk, waving dismissively at Earth's modest defenses. As the fleet's sensors combed the surface, they picked up signs of human craftsmanship, a network of simple tools, from plows to hand-forged blades. The commanders chuckled, trading amused glances. To them, it was unthinkable that a civilization would still rely on manual labor and basic tools. While they crafted everything with machines and artificial intelligence, humans were down there, using hammers and anvils, working metal by hand as they had for millennia. What were these humans thinking? The screen in the command center displayed the movements of a man in a rural village, toiling away at a forge. His arms were powerful, his movements deliberate, and his focus was unwavering. He took a chunk of metal and heated it until it glowed, then pounded it with an iron hammer, shaping it bit by bit. The galactic officers laughed. "Primitive metallurgy," they sneered, not understanding the intricate skill behind each swing. They were used to automated systems that could fabricate anything within seconds, not this slow, muscle-driven effort. As they watched, the blacksmith continued his work, ignoring the sweat on his brow. Every strike of his hammer was precise, and the commanders couldn't deny there was something compelling in his focus. But they dismissed it as little more than human stubbornness. He was, after all, just shaping a piece of metal, bound to make a basic, ineffective tool. They couldn't imagine that this ancient practice held any value in a world where weapons were supposed to be sleek, electronic, and automated. Despite themselves, some commanders watched closely, intrigued by the man's persistence. He was clearly pouring his strength into each strike, muscles flexing, his hands steady as he molded the metal. The glow from the forge cast an orange light across his face, highlighting the determination in his eyes. One officer scoffed, saying, "All this effort for what? A toy axe?" But he found himself watching still, captivated by the raw dedication of the blacksmith. Perhaps, he mused, there was a lesson here, though he quickly dismissed the thought. As the hours passed, the blacksmith's axe began to take shape. Though still rough, the weapon had an unmistakable strength about it. Each edge was sharp, each angle precisely made. It was a tool designed not just with strength in mind, but balance and resilience as well. Yet, the commanders shook their heads. Their own technology could create weapons with a single thought. They saw no value in what they were watching, dismissing it as a futile struggle of a primitive being. However, one scout couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this work. While he didn't dare voice it, he wondered if they were missing something. He observed the blacksmith's intense focus, the way his hands seemed to know the metal intimately, shaping it with a level of precision that no machine could mimic. To the scout, it was almost as though this simple man had tapped into an ancient understanding that defied their logic. Even the galactic commander, though silent, seemed slightly transfixed. The blacksmith was creating something personal, something unique. It was as if each strike was connected to the man himself, embodying his strength and his story in the metal. But to the commander, Earth was still a relic, a place where people wasted time on such inefficiencies. He saw it as admirable only in the sense that humans had clung to their traditions. Yet, in his heart, he couldn't help but wonder if the bond this blacksmith had with his creation was something their advanced technology had lost long ago. The scene continued, the forge glowing in the night as the blacksmith worked tirelessly. In a quiet village, the blacksmith stood at his forge, muscles tensed with years of practice, hands steady from hours spent mastering his craft. He was not a young man, but every movement he made was precise and purposeful. The forge roared as he stoked the fire, its heat swirling around him in waves. He placed a solid piece of iron into the flames, watching closely as it began to glow, the metal softening just enough to be shaped. This was not a task for the faint of heart. It required patience, strength, and above all, respect for the process. As the iron heated, the blacksmith prepared his tools, setting each in a particular order, honed by years of experience. He knew that each hammer strike had to be deliberate, and each angle carefully chosen. His hands knew this work as if they had a mind of their own, guided by instinct and skill passed down through generations. He wasn't just making a weapon, he was breathing life into raw metal, transforming it into something greater, something with purpose. With the metal glowing a bright orange, he lifted it from the forge and laid it on his anvil. The first strike echoed through the air, a deep, ringing sound that vibrated in his bones. He struck again and again, shaping the metal with each powerful blow, sweat dripping down his face. It was a rhythm, a dance between man and metal. Each swing was calculated, the force measured to shape but not fracture, to mold but not weaken. The iron began to flatten, edges forming as the axe's head started to emerge, rough yet full of promise. This was work that demanded full attention. The blacksmith's eyes never left the metal, his focus intense. He knew the balance needed for an axe, the way it had to feel in the hand, the weight that allowed for swift, powerful cuts. It wasn't enough for it to look right, it had to perform, to be reliable in the heat of battle or the simple tasks of everyday life. Every stroke of the hammer was a testament to his commitment to creating something functional yet beautiful, something that could withstand both time and use. After hours of hammering and shaping, he plunged the axe head into water, the steam hissing as the metal cooled and hardened. The sudden contrast of heat and cold gave it strength, transforming it from soft iron to hardened steel. It was a critical moment, one that could make or break the entire piece. He watched carefully, his experienced eye catching every detail. As the water sizzled and bubbled around the metal, he could see that the hardening process had worked perfectly. The metal was now as tough as it was sharp, ready to withstand the rigors of its purpose. With the metal cooled, he returned it to the anvil to refine the edges, to polish the surface, to bring out the hidden strength within. He worked meticulously, grinding and sharpening, each motion bringing the axe closer to completion. His tools were simple, but his knowledge turned them into extensions of himself, shaping the metal with a precision that no machine could replicate. It was a process of refinement, of transforming roughness into something deadly and exact. As he sharpened the blade, a fine edge began to emerge, gleaming under the light of the forge, a testament to the blacksmith's skill. When the blade was finished, he turned his attention to the handle. Selecting a piece of strong, seasoned wood, he carved it with care, shaping it to fit perfectly with the axe head. He whittled and sanded, testing the balance, ensuring that it would sit comfortably in the hand. The handle was as crucial as the blade. It had to be sturdy yet flexible, able to absorb shock without breaking. It was an art, creating a handle that complemented the blade, that felt like an extension of the arm, something that became a part of its wielder. Finally, he joined the blade and the handle, securing them with a metal wedge that locked them in place. The finished axe lay in his hands, heavy yet balanced, a weapon of pure, unyielding strength. He examined it closely, running his fingers along the blade's edge, feeling the weight and balance. It was more than just a tool. It was a piece of himself, a reflection of his skill, his patience, his resilience. It was a weapon that would not falter, forged not just with fire and iron, but with the heart and spirit of a true craftsman. As he stood back to look at his work, he felt a quiet sense of pride. This axe was not just metal and wood, it was a story, a legacy of countless hours spent mastering his craft. It was a reminder of a world where tools were made by hand, where each piece held a bit of the person who created it. In that moment, the blacksmith understood that his work was more than just a trade, it was a tradition, a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. Without fanfare, he set the axe down, knowing it was ready. It wasn't flashy or high-tech, but it was powerful in its simplicity, in the knowledge and care that had gone into its creation. It was an extension of a world that valued skill and endurance, a world that stood firm even as others moved to machines and automation. This axe would endure, a symbol of resilience, a testament to the strength found in tradition and hard-earned skill. The Galactic Fleet's commanders watched the blacksmiths work with a mixture of disbelief and amusement. For beings accustomed to creating everything with a mere command to machines, this slow, manual labor seemed absurd. They saw each hammer stroke, each careful adjustment, and couldn't understand why anyone would invest so much time and energy into a single weapon. Their own technology allowed them to fabricate weapons instantly, with precision down to the atom, yet here was a man, spending hours shaping one piece of metal. To them, it felt primitive, inefficient, even pointless. Among the ranks, some officers mocked the process openly. They questioned why anyone would rely on outdated methods in an age of advanced weaponry. They could vaporize entire planets with a single button press, wield energy fields that could cut through nearly anything, and build devices capable of unimaginable destruction. Yet this blacksmith, with his hammer and anvil, believed in his method, in the ancient art of shaping metal by hand. To the fleet, it was a symbol of Earth's backwardness, a refusal to evolve that they found both amusing and pathetic. However, despite their dismissive attitudes, the blacksmith's work had started to draw their attention in a way they hadn't anticipated. There was something captivating about his focus, his unwavering commitment. Even as they mocked him, they couldn't look away. Some among them began to feel a flicker of curiosity, wondering if there was something they were missing. They didn't voice it, of course. Admitting admiration for something so primitive would be absurd. Still, as they watched, a subtle shift in perception began to take place. As the blacksmith shaped the metal into an axe, the fleet's commanders scrutinized every move. The way he handled the iron, the precision with which he struck, and the clear understanding he had of his materials were undeniable. He was creating a weapon that, while crude by their standards, seemed to hold a distinct power. They noted his skill, the way he worked with both strength and delicacy, blending physical force with an intuitive sense for the metal. The commanders, despite themselves, had to admit that this process was far more involved than they had initially thought. A few officers began to debate the effectiveness of his approach. Some argued that no amount of skill could make an axe a match for their advanced weapons. To them, this axe was nothing more than a glorified relic, something that could never stand against their shields or energy fields. But others, though few in number, began to wonder if perhaps there was value in the blacksmith's dedication. They saw that this weapon was not just a tool, it was an embodiment of resilience, crafted with an understanding that went beyond technical knowledge. It was almost as if this axe carried a part of the blacksmith himself, a piece of his strength, his spirit. The fleet's discussions grew more intense as they watched the final stages of the axe's creation. They couldn't deny the power that seemed to radiate from it, the way it held a raw, unfiltered strength. This wasn't a weapon designed by calculations or blueprints. It was forged through intuition, through a relationship between man and metal that their machines couldn't replicate. While they didn't believe it could stand against their own weaponry, they had to acknowledge that this axe was something different, something they hadn't encountered before. As the blacksmith finished his work, the commanders watched closely, analyzing every detail of the completed weapon. They saw its sharp edge, the perfect balance between head and handle, the way it seemed to almost come alive in his hands. This wasn't a mindless object. It was a tool with purpose, crafted with a level of care and expertise that was foreign to them. They were masters of efficiency, of cold, calculated precision, but this axe represented something entirely different, something almost primal, a power that came not from technology, but from human endurance and skill. Some of the fleet's commanders felt a growing sense of respect, though they quickly buried it under their usual arrogance. They were not ready to admit that there might be worth in Earth's ways. After all, they held the advantage of technology, of progress. And yet, this blacksmith, in his simple forge, had created something that seemed to defy their expectations, a weapon that was, in its own way, powerful. It was not a match for their plasma guns or energy shields, but it carried a weight, a force, that was undeniable. As they turned away, they couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps they had overlooked something valuable in Earth's traditions. The axe was more than just a tool, it was a a testament to a world that refused to abandon its heritage, even in the face of seemingly superior technology. It represented a strength that came not from machines, but from dedication, from the willingness to put one's entire being into the work. This realization, though unspoken, lingered in the minds of the commanders, challenging their beliefs, making them question what true power really meant. In the end, they laughed it off, dismissing the axe as a curiosity, a relic of a bygone era. But deep down, they knew they had witnessed something profound, a glimpse into a world that valued craftsmanship over convenience, resilience over automation. The blacksmith lifted the finished axe, its weight solid in his hands, each part crafted with purpose. He ran his fingers along the sharpened edge, feeling its balance and strength, every inch a testament to hours of focused labor. He knew this weapon was different, not a simple tool, but something that held his dedication, his endurance, his own understanding of metal and fire. There was no hesitation as he tested its sharpness, slicing through a thick log with one clean strike. The blade moved swiftly, almost effortlessly, leaving a deep, smooth cut. It was powerful, responsive, and efficient, a weapon built for precision as much as power. The galactic observers were taken aback by the axe's performance. They had dismissed it as primitive, something that couldn't possibly compete with their advanced weapons, but seeing it in action made them pause. In a single stroke, the blacksmith's axe demonstrated a strength that they hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just the sharpness of the blade, or the force behind the swing. It was the way the weapon seemed to be an extension of the blacksmith himself. Each movement was fluid, natural, as if the axe had a life of its own. The blacksmith moved to heavier materials, using the axe to cut through stone and metal with a confidence that came from years of experience. He struck with purpose, each swing showcasing the blade's durability. The Galactic Fleet watched, growing uneasy as the axe's power became undeniable. They had expected it to shatter under pressure or fail against tougher materials, but it held firm, cutting through with ease. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances, recognizing that this weapon, despite its simplicity, was crafted with a precision that made it formidable. One officer voiced a thought that was shared by others but left unsaid. Perhaps there was more to this weapon than they had initially assumed. They had relied on technology to solve every problem, but here was a tool that achieved incredible feats without advanced engineering. It was built with skill, patience, and understanding, traits that they hadn't considered valuable. They began to see that the blacksmith's work was not just about creating an axe. It was about creating something that could endure, something that could stand the test of time and wear. With a final swing, the blacksmith drove the axe into a thick iron sheet, splitting it cleanly. The Galactic Fleet watched in silence, no longer mocking, no longer dismissive. They could see that this weapon, while lacking their technological enhancements, was powerful in its own right. It was a force born from human resilience, from the will to shape and create with one's own hands. They had no equivalent, no tool that was so intimately connected to its maker. In their world of mass production, each weapon was identical, devoid of individuality, but this axe was unique, irreplaceable. The Galactic Commander watched with a newfound respect, understanding that this axe was not just a weapon, it was a symbol. It represented a way of thinking, a way of creating that they had abandoned long ago. He realized that their technological superiority had distanced them from such a connection. They could manufacture anything instantly, but they couldn't create something with this level of personal investment. In a way, the blacksmith had shown them a form of strength that they had overlooked, a strength that came not from machinery, but from dedication and skill. He couldn't deny the admiration he felt as he observed the blacksmith's pride in his work. This axe was not a product of efficiency or convenience. It was a product of persistence and mastery. Every strike, every adjustment had been made with intent, and the result was a weapon that could withstand far more than they had imagined. The Galactic Fleet, despite their advancements, could not replicate this process. They could not imbue their creations with the same spirit, the same attention to detail that the blacksmith had poured into this axe. The fleet's scanners registered the energy of the axe as stable, unremarkable by their standards, yet its performance spoke otherwise. It was an enigma, a paradox that their technology couldn't explain. They began to realize that perhaps their reliance on machines had limited their understanding of strength. They had seen Earth as weak, as a world that hadn't advanced, but this axe showed them that progress wasn't always about innovation. Sometimes, it was about perfecting the simple, about finding strength in methods honed over centuries. As the blacksmith examined his work, the Galactic Fleet found themselves confronted with their own limitations. In their pursuit of efficiency, they had lost something fundamental, a connection to creation itself. The axe was a reminder of a world that valued craftsmanship over automation, a world that hadn't forgotten the power of skill. It was a quiet lesson, one that didn't require words or explanations, only the weight of a hand-forged blade in motion. The blacksmith's gaze settled on the axe, his satisfaction evident. This weapon would last. It was built to endure. The galactic commander felt a pang of envy, knowing that their own weapons, though powerful, lacked this sense of permanence. Their weapons were disposable, replaceable, while this axe was singular, crafted with a purpose that transcended mere function. It was a legacy, a symbol of resilience and ingenuity that couldn't be replicated in a laboratory. As the blacksmith set down the axe, the fleet understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary. This wasn't just about a weapon, it was about the spirit that created it. The axe embodied a strength that could not be calculated, a power that came not from complexity, but from simplicity, from dedication. They realized that Earth, with all its so-called primitive methods, held a wisdom they had yet to grasp. The galactic commander gave a quiet nod, an acknowledgement that this blacksmith, in his small forge, had shown them something profound. The blacksmith placed the finished axe down with a sense of quiet pride. Every line, every curve was exact. It was not a mere tool but an extension of his own skill and dedication, a piece of craftsmanship that carried the weight of centuries of tradition. As he looked at it, he saw a reflection of all the moments spent in the forge, the hard-won knowledge, the unbreakable patience, and the perseverance to see something through from raw iron to refined steel. To him, the axe was a part of a legacy, not something disposable or replaceable. For the Galactic Fleet, watching in silent astonishment, this realization took on a different significance. They came to understand that the axe represented more than just strength or weaponry. It was a testament to a way of life, one that valued connection to one's work, dedication to purpose, and the resilience to endure. It was a lesson that transcended their technology, for no machine could ever replicate the human connection that had shaped this weapon. The commanders knew that in their advanced society, where efficiency ruled above all, something essential had been lost. As the fleet prepared to depart, they carried with them a newfound respect for Earth and its people. The axe was not something they could use in battle, not a tool that would fit within their ranks, yet its creation had shown them something they had overlooked for so long. They recognized a quiet strength in the humans below, a strength rooted not in advanced technology, but in the enduring power of tradition and skill. It was a force that had no parallel in their realm of machinery and mass production. One of the fleet's leaders, reflecting on the blacksmith's work, saw the axe as a symbol of human resilience. He understood now that Earth's strength was not defined by the sophistication of its weapons, but by the determination and adaptability of its people. They had faced adversity with tools shaped by hand, with skills honed through time, and a dedication that no machine could replicate. In their drive for advancement, they had overlooked the simple truth that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes, it's about holding on to what endures. The fleet departed, carrying an unspoken understanding of Earth's value. They left the blacksmith unaware of his audience, yet his work had impacted them more deeply than they could have imagined. For the commanders, this experience would linger, a quiet reminder that even the most sophisticated machines lack the heart and soul that went into a handcrafted weapon. It was a realization that, despite their superiority, they could never truly possess the spirit of resilience that Earth held. In the silence of space, far from the forge, the commanders shared a sense of awe, one that would follow them across the stars. They knew they had witnessed something unique, something that could not be replicated by technology or conquered by force.